All right, looks like we are broadcasting live. We're going to hang out with the audience here for a few minutes. We have Mr. High Five Vega, and we also have our guest, Mr. Harrison from Australia, here to join us
Oh
today.
no.
What is Rob's problem?
I failed. I failed. I left the volume on.
Oh,
We're good now.
yeah, we're not live. I mean, we're not live. We're live, but we're not recording yet.
Let's do it live.
So, how's everybody in the chat tonight? You guys excited about our first guest? We're trying not to embarrass ourselves too much. But Craig is very generous to join us, and look at his setup. Craig, just say something real quick so they can see your setup.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, this is just our meeting room that is yet to be populated with our demo speakers, but we're getting there. And it's, like I said, it's 10:45 a.m. here in Australia. So I was going to say it's a typical sunny day in Melbourne, but it's not. It's overcast and raining, but that's normal. So
Oh, that's too bad.
yeah.
So a typical day there is overcast and rainy, huh? So it's
Yeah, well,
kind
typically in Melbourne, you get, they say, all seasons in one day. So you get rain and sun and, a bit of wind, and it balances out. So,
So it's like the American South.
yeah. Now,
Sounds just like it.
one of the guys on a couple of the Facebook groups was saying that they might have some trouble understanding me. So I kind of been practicing my American. So,
Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear
no,
it.
it's bad. It's real bad. Yeah.
it can't be worse than my Australian accent. So
That sounded German.
yeah,
You
see,
went
I don't.
German.
I do Russian when I try to do different accents. No attempts from Big D.
No, that's good. No, we were having a go here. Sam and I were having a go here the other day about trying to do the intro to Old School Stereo. Running it off that failed dismally. Anyway,
I hope you recorded that because I could
no,
use it for
there's
outros.
only one man that can pull that off, and that's you, mate. I can't.
Yeah, not the perfectionist, am I? If you saw all the B-roll, I'm sure you guys have got some. I know Rob's got some too, but I have
Yeah.
tons of B-roll,
I
C-roll,
publish
and
I
B-roll.
publish B-roll to my channel.
Yeah.
Well, I do it sometime at the end. It's kind of like the what do you call it? The Marvel movies. You know how they always do the little special thing at the very end.
Oh, the
I
bloopers.
Yeah, I try to do that, or the little teaser at the very end too. Try to do that. So it looks like we've got about 24 right now in the chat room and viewing. Good evening and good morning to everyone watching, listening, however you are consuming this. We are just going to hang out here for a few minutes, and then we're going to start up the live show at around the top of the hour, and we're going to do the official recording. So we won't be looking at questions or anything. But if you guys have any questions for us or comments, or don't talk about the spot here, because I know I don't have so can't help it. My makeup artist is not here tonight. So other than that, if you have any comments or questions for Craig or anything, shoot it to us in the chat, and we'll try to get to it after. We'll stick around for a little bit afterwards, and not try to keep Craig too long after the hour, but we'll enjoy the time we have with him here. And thanks again, Craig, for taking time out of your schedule to join us.
No, my pleasure. I appreciate you. Appreciate you guys inviting me. It's great. Very grateful. Thank you.
This will be awesome.
I've got to meet the standard, though. I mean, I'm just looking at Rob's tie again, and I'm feeling quite underdressed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he pulled that little trick without telling me too. So I don't know what's up. He's trying to take the head chair here or something. Is that what it is, Rob?
No, I think you got the head covered. Like
Ah, that was a good
something
one. I
right
knew
here.
that was coming.
I got a little going on right here.
Well,
It's
there
fine.
comes a point in your life, if you're like me, then the hair it kept going back, and then the sides started turning gray, and I was like, that's it, she's gone. And I don't even know how many years ago that was. It was like 12 or 15 years ago,
And
and it's
Craig's
the best
he's
decision I
bringing
ever
the
made.
hair. He's bringing
Yes.
the hair, so we're good.
Can I say, mate? It hasn't fallen out yet, but it is getting close.
Well, it's not as bad as everybody makes that to be when it does. So, the weirdest thing though is the very first time you shave it, you can feel the heat coming off the top of your head.
Yeah, right.
Strangest thing ever. But after that, you never feel it again. So,
Yeah, but you shave.
yes,
I just go, with the clippers, but
no, I shave. Yeah,
yeah.
I put the cream up there and everything, and have the the suction cup mirror that's in the shower that falls about every 6 months in the middle of the night. My wife's like, "What's that?" I said, "Oh, it's just the mirror in the shower."
Listen to you two old men. My God.
We told you.
Yeah.
You didn't believe us.
I know, right? Yeah.
All right, I was just looking in the chat room here to see what kind of questions we have. About 30 now. Wear better with the hat backwards. Oh, without the hat backwards. Yeah, I think somebody's trying to butter me up there because I don't think that's really true. But thanks for that comment. Yes, so we're having the OSS meet in near Dallas, Texas on Saturday, but unfortunately, it has been extremely rainy all this week, and it's supposed to be that way maybe Saturday too. But that's not going to stop us from going. Right, Rob?
We'll be there.
We'll be there.
We have some open space. Hopefully we can just get a couple hours at least of clearing. Maybe we'll get lucky.
And Craig, I didn't have this as a question, but I may ask it during the recording. Have you ever been to the U.S.?
Yeah, mainly for work, and mainly on the West Coast, so Long Beach, and up to Washington State when I was working in the British Merchant Navy. That was on oil tankers.
Okay.
Got a lot of stories. Always got stories, but
Oh, we love stories.
not these ones.
Good deal.
So did you notice that when we have a guest, it shows the screens below on the live stream? It's not just a simple switch back and forth now.
Oh yeah, I do see that. You're right.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's something that we didn't notice before because with just two of us, it didn't show. And what Rob's talking about, Craig, is on the actual live stream on YouTube right now. You can see all three of our little heads, and then whoever's talking takes the main part of the screen.
All right, there you go.
So that's kind of cool. I still want to have the three separate, but we're working on that. Maybe by the next time we have you on, we'll have that figured out. Cool. Just
So BMX.
Don't go there.
There he
Don't go
goes.
there. I know what you're. No, I get it. I just wasn't in that BMX crowd, and I appreciate the question that for everyone listening. There was a couple of days ago. You asked me, was I into BMX in the 80s? And no, not really. But I was rocking a Melbourne Star with the big sort of handlebars like that. Didn't have the gear change lever, but
Yeah.
I used to ride around thinking I was Chips. Remember Chips, California Highway
Yeah.
Patrol? Love that show.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Good times.
Well,
No BMX, Rob.
as long as you didn't skate, did you skateboard or rollerblade?
There might have been a bit of roller skating. There may have-
Roller skating. Whoa.
Oh yeah. We're talking, the four wheels. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that
Nice.
too, Rob, so don't pick on him because I did it when I was like 10 to 12 or something. Yeah. That's where all the girls were. They were at the
That's-
roller skating rink.
Got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was fun. But the funny thing about the BMX part, if you go back in my videos, which I've got like 520 or something, but if you go back to the very first couple of videos I uploaded to my channel, they're BMX. They're not me. They're recordings we did of guys that came by in the early 80s that came by our town. And back then we actually had the 8mm film that only took 4 minutes at a time, I think. So no sound. It just had video, and it was I think it was 15 frames a second, so it was very stuttery. But yeah, those are the first couple videos I put up in 2006, back when YouTube first started.
Right.
12 years ago.
Oh man,
And-
you could be like the PewDiePie of car audio if you would have got in it early enough.
Yeah, I missed that boat by quite a bit, uploading BMX videos. But you know, the other funny fact about back then is the quality. It was either 360 or 480p is the highest quality you could upload for a long, probably up until almost 2010, maybe 2009, 2008. They went to 720, and then they jumped to 1080, and then after that, of course, now they're like at 8K or something if you can support it. But YouTube has done a great job with the streaming and the video stuff. The only issue I have with it is trying to find, like if I go to my channel, sometimes I do a search. If I tag everything with a similar tag, it's really hard to find the older content. And people comment to me about that all the time. Hey, did you test blah, blah, blah? I'm like, did you search?
Yeah.
And but then I search and I say, oh, well, that's why they can't find it, because it does give you a lot of results. So I'm hoping they're going to work on that to make it more easy to find the content. But that's why we need to have our own websites and have our own content there and just embed it and let it go to YouTube. Because in that way you can control, how it looks and everything. All right, Oklahoma. Somebody says rain or shine. See y'all Saturday. Yeah, I don't know how many Aussies are here. You guys comment below how many people. Australia, New Zealand, anywhere outside the U.S.
I see 2.
All right, we got 2. Car Audio, etc. He's in New Zealand. I didn't see him in here. I was just kind of mentioning it. I mean, I guess a lot of people, obviously, they're working right now, so they're not watching or listening. Craig's like, I should be too.
Yep, working hard here, boys.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm good. If y'all are good for us to go ahead and start, I'm gonna go ahead, Rob, and pull up the slide.
All right.
I apologize for the quality of the graphic here. I just kind of took Craig's logos and slapped them beside of ours. But you wanna? I think I did the last one, so it's your turn. You good?
Okay, so you want me to kick it to you and then you kick it to introduce Craig?
Sure.
All right.
That's fine. All right. So what we do, Craig, is I'll go ahead and I'm going to share the graphic, and I'm going to give Rob a countdown from 5, and then he'll start, and it's just like we're starting the recording at that time, because this is the audio portion that we use. And then once he introduces himself and kicks it to me, then I'll introduce myself and I'll introduce you as our guest. And then we'll just start going through the questions, if that's cool.
All good.
All right, sounds good. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen here, and make sure everybody can see it. Come up here on the stream in just a second. All right, I see it on the stream. Rob, I'll give you a countdown.
All right.
And you don't have to wait after this one since we're already streaming.
Yeah.
All right. 5, 4, 3, 2.
12-volt talk here, episode 11. It's me, Hi-Fi Vega, joined as always by my good buddy, Big D Wiz.
What's up, guys? Big D Wiz here. YouTube.com/Big D Wiz. OldSchoolStereo.com. Today, friends, we have a very exciting episode of 12-volt talk. We have our first guest. We have Mr. Craig Harrison from oldschoolcaraudio.com.au, and he is down in Australia. And Craig, how you doing today?
G'day, guys. I thought I'd throw a g'day in there because that's the obligatory thing to do, isn't it? If you're from Australia, right? No, good to be here. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate you having me on your show. That's great.
We're really excited, and Rob and I both super enjoy your content, especially the quality of the camera, the audio, and also the installs you show and everything. We're really excited to talk to you, And we've got some questions. So, Rob, you want to start off?
Great.
Yeah, let's
Let's
start off.
warm up for
So-
these questions.
All right. So tell us a little bit about your history in car audio. Where did it all start for you?
Yeah, right. Interesting question. I guess, well, it goes back to when I was probably a student, and it would have been playing around with your parents' car. You know that back in the day, the late '80s, there was nothing, so you'd steal some home speakers and you'd try and sort of put them in the car. When I was 17 when I got my license, so I recall having a set of home hi-fi speakers, sort of wired in with a cassette deck, and rocking the car. And then even at high school with friends of ours, and it was just it was what we were curious about. I think it was our curiosity more than a passion at that time. And it led me to when I was at university. Then I could afford a little car, and it was only a tiny little hatchback. But the first thing you do is you start pumping subwoofers into it, and anything you can find to make it, put some tunes in it, because there was nothing. And it's very different to cars today, to cars back then, as in the late 80s, even early 90s. There was cassette players. Everyone was trying to. The CDs came out. We were trying to put a CD player through the cassette mechanism. Then there was your standard 6x9s on the parcel shelves. Then we're into subwoofers, and then in your kick panels, and away you go. And so it was a real curiosity and a hobby for me. And I just always liked it, I think because there was a technical challenge in it as well. And, none of us really knew what we were doing. And I'm sure it goes for everyone when they're that age and just playing around. You find your way as you go. And then it would have been, I would say, 1996 that I was living in Sydney, and I decided to go to a shop. There was Gold Coast Car Sound at the time. Spend a large sum of money, because it was, it was boom time in car audio, and build myself the car that I wanted, or almost wanted, I should say, because the money only goes so far, And that was my Mitsubishi Magna, which I've got some old photos of. But so look, that was kind of the history, if you like, where the curiosity began. And then life takes over. You have a career, you do your thing. And for me, that was, I was in the British Merchant Navy for probably 13 years. And as a chief engineer, then, came ashore, worked in the oil and gas sector, as a consultant, project manager, construction manager for large offshore structures. So I do a lot of work in Asia. And it was, I guess, in the last probably 8 to 9 years that I started, I'm not saying finding the time, but seeking out that curiosity that I had when I was younger, because it never goes away. And I started, that manifested itself by collecting. So I started collecting those items that resonated with me when I was in my 20s. It's that I guess, looking back to the time that was fun, and those items that either you couldn't afford or were iconic back in the day. And so you kind of go searching, you see something pop up and you go, oh, remember that. And then all the memories that were attached to that. And so I think that's how it started. It was really started by collecting old equipment. And then as it's progressed with collecting and networking and lots of connections that come from that, and, meeting guys like yourselves, and, it's formed into now a business. And that's really only been in the last 9 months. So that's it in a nutshell. That's kind of how it all started, Rob. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually very similar to me in collecting. I picked up an old piece. It was a Kicker XS50, I believe it was. Then I got on there. I was like, I wonder if anyone's tested this. I got on YouTube, seen Dee's video, and then I just hit the bug. I just watched everything. So
Yep.
I blame my addiction on Derek now. Actually, I've toned back the collecting addiction. But I
Yeah.
fought that back, but it was Derek's fault when it happened.
Yes, I'm responsible for a lot of those, and that's fine. But you guys have driven the prices up. You guys have driven the prices up. But I want to go back to something Craig talked about earlier because I'm going to have to disagree that I ever did that. And that's putting home speakers in your car. I never did that.
Never. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
No.
we all did that. And it's very important what you said, too, about trial and error. I think these days with the internet and everybody being an expert, people are afraid to try stuff that may not work. And I think you learn so much by trial and error. And if you always take what Joe or Bob or Frank or Jim tells you to do, then you never really get to experience a lot of the fun of car audio. But that's just a personal opinion of mine. Um, so you talked a little bit, Craig, about the Mitsubishi. Was that really, because one of our questions here is about
Mm.
what your first system consisted of? Was it the Mitsubishi? And what the pictures that you gave me, which car was that? Was that later that we're going to talk about that? Well, I'll show people some of those.
Yeah, I don't think I flicked any photos over of that. The first one, which was a little Daihatsu Charade, which is something I put together. But that Mitsubishi was one that was, I think you've got some photos of. And that was the first real big competition system I have, and perhaps what a lot of people remember me from in the 90s. I didn't have it for a lot of years. That's it, yeah. Yeah, that was there's a whole lot of fun in that car, and I remember having to pull it all apart. There's a story. Like, there's always a story. You spend all that money and you have something that only lasted a few years. I don't think it was no more than 4 or 5 years I had that car, and then I remember regretfully pulling it apart piece by piece and selling it because I couldn't afford it. I needed some money, and but that Alpine Momo steering wheel, I think it was only like 400 of those in Australia.
Wow.
I can't say it was 100% reliable, but it was one of those iconic pieces that people go looking for now.
Yeah, I just saw somebody post on one of the Alpine forums, and I had never knew that was there. And when I was looking at your picture earlier, I said, "Is that what I think it is? Is that what I just saw today?"
Yeah, right.
Have you ever seen that, Rob?
No, I didn't even know such a thing existed.
I didn't either until today, and then I looked at Craig's picture, and I'm like, this is too ironic for me to see it today posted online and then look at his car, and there it is. That is just wicked.
It had the little remote
Right in the center.
at the back. Yeah, there was one at the back, which obviously, depending on what angle you had the steering wheel, you'd have to sort of slightly turn to the left to go fast forward, so it would aim at the yes, like you said.
Because it was infrared, I'm sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was before the RF days.
Yeah, but it was a whole lot of fun, and look, the guys who built the car was it was actually one of the guys was a Canadian guy. Who there was a lot of sort of Canadian American imports, if you like, in the 90s in Australian car audio. I think the shops that were the leaders and had sort of like importing the talent from the US, because the US and Canada were like easily 10 years ahead of what anything was going on. So there was a lot of skills that came in to the market. So a lot of guys tackled that. Everything was hand built. All those circuits to control the fan speeds on and off, and all the voltage there in the center console, that was all hand built. Everything, even the circuits, all made. It was a lot of effort.
Wow.
Yeah,
And nowadays, you can go down to an electronics shop and can buy all that stuff.
Yeah, it makes you want to, wish we had the 1080p video now to be able to show this, because this will be such a cool walkthrough. What was the Hitachi? Was this a TV or something, or video system, or what was that remote for?
That was the top of the line VHS recorder there.
VHS. Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
That was in under the back seat, and so I played videos through the
Through the Alpine.
Yep,
Okay.
the CVA 1000E. Yeah, that was a PlayStation tucked in the back center armrest as well. But yeah, all that went through there. I remember even to the point where that dash was, all the air vents were remade behind that dash as well. That was all made out of like PVC piping, and because we had to fit a CD changer in the dash, and yeah, big job, really big job.
Yeah, I can tell.
Wow.
It's a wicked install. I'm enjoying looking at the pics. I'll show the trunk here in a minute. Just teasing everybody for right now, because I'll show the doors too. All these are from the same vehicle, right? That you sent me. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll show the door now so people can see the beautiful install. The Canton. Is it
Yes.
Canton or Canton? How do you say that?
Yeah, I say Canton, whatever. I mean, it's the wonderful thing about these is I love these speakers so much that everyone who heard them made a comment how good they were, that I made a point to try and collect or find these particular models now. And there's not many out there. And I bought some off Brad Newsom. I found some online through a store in Asia. And so I'm not sure how many are around anymore, but I've probably still got about 3 or 4 sets new in the box. The Canton Pullman series. These are all handmade. I mean, very similar to your old MB Court speaker, and still hold their own today. I've put them in the Jeep, so they're the speakers in the front of the Jeep and in the rear fill. And they're just a great sounding. The tweeter especially was a great sounding tweeter. It's really sweet. Doesn't rip your face off. So yeah, it was through that. I mean, looking at the door trim now reminds me of they were an 8-inch in the door at the time, an 8 and a 4, I think, and the tweet was up in the dash. But yeah, really good sounding tweeter. Mm.
Yeah, that's a slick look there. I've never heard the Cantons, but I'm big on the Boston Acoustics from that era too. Those were big here, and that's the ones that I search for, and I've got several. But I know how it is. You find something you like the sound of it, then that's what you want, and that's why I think people need to experiment, because you might not know what you like until you hear it. But the more you experiment, the more you can get closer to hearing that. So.
So you touched on the Canadian and Americans in Australia.
Yep.
So how did the scene compare U.S. to Australia in the time? Was it similar? Was it different?
I was only a participant at the time, so my perspective is a bit limited. Because I wasn't in the industry, I think guys within the industry could probably provide a much better comment. But as a participant, what I remember, and forgive me for anyone listening that this is, I get this wrong, but from what I remember is there was only a couple of stores who sort of did that, brought in a couple of guys from the US or Canada. And I know Gold Coast Car Sound was one of them. I believe Albert's Hi-Fi in Western Australia and Perth was another one. And so their installs, you'd read the magazines, what it was like. You'd pull out your car audio and electronics, or the Australian version at the time. I think it was still in-car entertainment, or Car Stereo was another magazine that was around for a while. And you would look at the big systems, and they all had the same shop. So there was only a handful of shops that were doing these big installs. Having said that, there was still a lot of other good installs and a lot of other shops doing that work. But I recall there was, so I drove. I liked the stuff that Gold Coast Car Sound were doing, and I drove from Sydney to the Gold Coast 3 times over the course of, say, 6 months to get that car finished and built. And that's a long drive. I'm guessing, I think it's probably about 850 kilometres. I'd have to go and have a look,
Wow.
So there was a bit of commitment there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they did a good job. But it's all perception. It's it's not to say that someone couldn't have done it right more locally, but at the time that was where my heart and soul was, and that's where I thought I needed to be. And the guys did a great job, and yeah, it was certainly an experience.
That's quite a distance to drive to get an install, so they must have been pretty impressive as they've done it. I think people don't realize how big Australia really is, and how much space is in between each city.
Yeah, and again, the population of, I think we're 25 million now, and the US is 250 million plus, and it's always been that, that sort of ratio. So you got to remember that there's, the scene here is not big, and as compared to the US. So if you're talking about how the scene was in the 80s and 90s, again, only as a participant I recall this, that I used to love going to the car shows, and for my mind they were big. I look back still on some of the VHS recordings that I have, because I had one of those big clunky video cameras you'd carry around with you. And I look back and I think, yeah, they were really big. You don't see anything like that now. To what it is what it was back in the 90s. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, I'm sure, but we can get into that. But certainly back then, I think that, the scene was big. There was a lot of excitement and enthusiasm. But again, the cars were very different and everyone was upgrading. Whereas nowadays you look at cars, they kind of have everything and people don't really want to touch them because you send a console, you got your computer that controls everything. You change that out, you create headaches for yourself, So,
exactly.
And that's what we love to do, create headaches for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've discussed that some in the past shows about how much more difficult it is these days to upgrade a system, versus back in the 80s we just pulled the head unit out and replaced all the stock speakers. But yeah, these days it's much more difficult for sure. I had a question that was derived from what you just were talking about, and then somewhere in the air around my bald head it just flew away. So I'm gonna have to come back to it because it was very pertinent to what we were talking about. But when it comes back to me, I'll ask you. And you touched on this before, but since we have these questions, I'd like to kind of, maybe reiterate it again if you did talk about it. But why old school?
Yeah, good point. Good question. So I think this comes back to, this is a separate comment I'll make. There's a comment I'd like to make a bit later on when appropriate about the business and why it's called old school car audio. But I think what you're trying to ask me is, I think I made a comment before about old school equipment, and that was where my curiosity reignited for car audio, was part in this journey of collecting and seeking out those items that you either couldn't afford when you were younger or you could afford, but it was that period in your life that curiosity you had that resonated with you. So you go after those little trinkets and items, whatever that might be. It's that collecting thing that you get when you sort of hit our age, I'm sure of it. So for me, it was those old school amplifiers and some speakers. Now, you start to learn real quick that old school speakers it's like a time bomb. If you're buying hand grenades, and 7 times out of 10, they're pretty well beaten up, and you're going to have to do a fair bit of work on, putting new surrounds on and maybe looking at new spiders and fixing up your speakers. So I think that people miss this. They go collecting things and they don't realize they end up with cupboards full of junk that they can't use. But for me, it was that curiosity. It was picking up those pieces that really resonated with me back. And then the one particular piece was the Orion HCCA 2100. Okay, and that was the amp I couldn't afford, right? So when I built that car that we were looking at, the amplifiers in that car were all Orion, running the front and rear stage, 2150 on front, those Cantons, a little 275 on the rear fill Cantons, and I had 4 Orion XTR3 single voice call in a isobaric bandpass. No Orion amps. Had to settle for the Alpine 1505s, right? And hey, good amp in their own right, no question. Yeah, see those 2 1505s in the center there?
Oh. So
what should have been there would have been a couple of red 2100s. So for me, again, I started looking for Orion 2100s purely because I thought, I wonder what, are they still around? Do people have those? And, look at that. You look at it and you say, yeah, I might buy that. So that's kind of how it started. It was literally like that. So I bought those amplifiers that were the ones that I always wanted, couldn't afford. And then you end up with 2. And then you get 3. And away it goes. You sort of just keep. And then you get them and then, you need to fix them. But I liked it. And again, it's that, I will make a point. For me, it was that connection. It really resonated with me. It was that time, those items that I was really curious about, couldn't afford. I liked the weight of them. I liked the look of the old heat sinks. I liked, there was a bit of, there was a lot of human attention to them. There's the engraving on the PPI amps and those that have the engravings on the circuit boards where people sign their name and all that kind of stuff. There was a real personalization for it. There was a real human element to them. And so that might sound a little bit sort of wishy-washy, but that's what it is for me. That's the connection. I like it. It's, you feel it. It's a tangible thing. I pick up, say, a more modern amplifier. I don't get that feeling. I don't get that connection, and that's okay. But that's what it is for me. The problem, I think, is then if you say, those amps are the best and there's nothing like it these days. And if you start going down that path, that's where I will pause the conversation. And because it's I don't think it's true. There's a lot more technology these days. The old Class AB versus Class D argument, that's all fine, but there's a lot of good amplifiers these days, and a lot, outperforming amplifiers like the 2100 will kill it and will sound just as good or sound better. But it's not what it's about for me. It's about the time that I remember that amplifier was the business, and it's almost historical now, isn't it? Like, imagine putting a bunch of them into a car. You can get it to sound great, but you also get that nice wow factor because there's that, look at that, it's almost a classic piece of equipment. So that's why old school, I think, in terms of the pieces. Yeah.
That was a great answer. And a couple things I'm going to say from what you just said, or a couple comments I'm going to bring back to you. One, the speakers, I couldn't agree more with you about the old speakers, because people pay a lot of money for these old speakers. In a lot of cases, they're junk. I mean, they're flappy. The soft parts are just worn out completely. But I've bought a lot over the years too, so let's don't let people know that little secret until I've gotten rid of some of my stuff too. Of course, I would never sell things without telling people. I'm not that kind of person. I wouldn't do that. But I do think a lot of people kind of have blinders on when they think, oh, MB Court, the Q Series, or Boston Acoustics, the Pro Series, or name your brand and the version here. If this is what this speaker is, then this is a top notch. It doesn't matter that it's 25 years old, and that's not true, unfortunately. But the comment I'll say about the amplifiers is your experience is pretty much the same as mine, and probably Rob's as well. A lot of it for us is nostalgia, and it's no different than the cars. A lot of times people remember a 300ZX or whatever it was called in Australia, but when I was 16, man, the 300ZX was the car. I wanted one of those so bad. And still today, I'm like, it would still be cool to have one of those, but it's all about remembering, back then, how cool I would have been if I would have had one. And now I can actually afford one, so I want to get it. And it's the same way with the amplifiers. And like you, I found a few and started finding more and more, and realized, wow. Even, of course, back then when I started collecting, they were reasonably priced. Even the 2100s, those went for like $300. I think I paid $250 for one or two of them.
Oh, right.
The Power 1000 Rockfords, of course, those have always been high. But $600, I think I paid for my first one of those. Now you can't even get one that's broken for $600 US. But
I bought some broken ones for $600.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You can barely get them for $600, and then they need be completely redone, recapped, and the shroud refinished, and all the expenses involved with that. But Rob, your experience the same, or what do you think?
Yeah. So for me, it started with the old school, just like everybody else. But it's funny how that kicks you into new school. Like, hey, I realize I actually enjoy the music, and I want something that sounds nice. So I've said it before, for me, convenience will trump fidelity almost, for my daily driver most of the time, unless I'm going to compete or something like that. So for me, using old school, I only use it if I have no compromises. There can be no space compromises, no heat issues, anything like that. That's the only way I'm willing to use it anymore.
Yeah, the way we've kind of described it before is, these days you can get a lot of power in a small package, and you're in a vehicle listening to audio. And in most cases, you're driving, so it's loud. I don't care how much sound deadening you have in your car. It's still going to be road noise and other things. You're not in an ideal environment. You're not in a sealed off room with deadening all around you, and it's designed for listening to a 2-channel system or a 2.1 system. Cars inherently have noise and rattles and vibrations and things like that. So I think a lot of people who may try to achieve that perfection by spending the most money on the fanciest amplifier, the fanciest speakers and all that, there is some thought that, hey, maybe this is not the perfect environment. You can make it that way, sure, it costs a lot of money, and a lot of people don't want to do that. But what we're getting at is, if you want to make your system better, a new school amp, you don't have to worry about, it need to be recapped and, catching on fire and everything that happens with the older amps. But that doesn't take anything away from how cool the old school amps are.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of. I wrote a blog on this on our website. I think it was the last month, because it was just something that was on my mind. Talking about old guys our age, and I have that conversation where people say, "Oh, those amps were the best," and all this and that. But I think there's that placebo effect as well that you get from that older equipment that you remember at that time. It's the nostalgia on top of that. It's always going to sound good to you, and if that's okay. If you think that sounds really good, that's good for you. But I think the argument falls apart if you try and say that there's they were better full stop than what you can see these days. And having said that, there's also a lot of junk these days as well, and I own some of that junk too. But I think there's some middle ground.
Absolutely, and that's why I do a lot of what I do, trying to weed through the junk and the better stuff and test everything so that everybody can see. So that's my kind of goal of what I do. So Rob, you got the next one. This is a question that I wanted to ask, but you can ask it.
Okay. I really should ask this to both of you. How many amps do you think you own?
Old or new?
Let's say old for the sake of this question.
Yeah. I actually have just done a bit of a stock check because I'm so far behind putting my old items on the website. So I should say to anyone who's been on our website, my apologies. I've got one item put in the old school, but I've got probably 250 items to list. I'm getting there. Having said that, 174 was my last count for amps.
Wow. Wow.
And I'd say, look at you guys laughing. I know. I would say 100 of those will be easily listed online, for sale. So, yeah.
Wow. I don't know, Rob. I'm afraid to count, but I think Craig's got me.
I've been to your house, and I'm going to say it's pretty close. Go into Derek's house. I'm going to say it's pretty close. I mean, I could tell you how many amps
see them all.
Have. Yeah, I know. And I think I have maybe 1, 2. I have 14 amps altogether. Everything.
Sensible man. There's a sensible man right there.
Yes, it is.
I didn't at one time. I had probably just 20 cheater amps. So I've been trying to. Actually, I've got a very small room here, and if any car audio gets out of here, my wife's going to have some problems. So that's why I started getting more speakers. I had to get rid of something.
So
go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, sorry. Just on that now. There is a guy in Australia who I won't say his name, who might be listening, who I reckon hands down has more old school than me, and you think I've got it bad. I know he's got it real bad, and his house is so full that it overflows in different cupboards and random stuff he's forgotten about, and the garage, and then there's a shipping container in another state that's chocked full of stuff. So he knows who he is, and I don't. but I think he wins hands down. He's a big collector. And don't forget, and you got Brad Newsom in the US.
He's got a whole warehouse.
Yeah, Brad, and there's a few others I know, but I guess the thing that I went back to when I was collecting them is I thought I could get. I could have the coolest, biggest collection, but then when I started seeing on Facebook and see what other people had, I just said, I'll just give up. I don't even try to compete anymore with that because It's ridiculous. And I think some of the ones that are the biggest are the ones that don't, post online, or they don't show themselves. So you think, hey, this
Yeah.
guy's got the biggest collection because he shows it, but then this other guy's like, no, I've got, like you said, shipping containers full and storage
Mm.
units and
Mm.
barns and everything else full. But
Oh, we know a few. We're not going to call you out, Itchy.
Yeah. Yeah, come on, let's start naming names. Come on.
yeah, but the cool part is we get to borrow stuff from people like him to test.
Oh yeah.
So we've got a really cool amp coming up in a few weeks that
What
he
we'd
sent
like
me.
to know is, Sam and I were talking down here the other day, is we want to borrow your amp dyno. Forget sending amps. We'll just ship us your amp dyno for a little while. We'd like to.
Yeah, I don't know what the weight is in kilograms, but that thing would cost a fortune to ship. It's you need to get the handheld one, the AMM one, because that one's not too bad. But that amp dyno, it would cost. You might as well just get a plane seat for it.
Can
That's
be
a good
done.
idea. Just fly us both down, and we'll just hang out and test amps.
Yeah, we could probably take you up on that if you could work it into the business plan. To have us come down there, we'll take it with us. It'll be
So
my carry on.
I'm gonna get this next question because I know you really want to go to the question after that. I know Dee's been. So, what's your favorite amp or your dream amp?
All right. Okay. Well, I think, to be honest with you, I thought about that because I asked that people a lot, and I would say it's probably the Orion 2100. Like, it's nothing flash. It's a simple 900 watt amplifier that's just red and sexy and beautiful, and
Yeah.
that's all it is. And again, it just comes from that time. Is it the best performing amplifier of its day? No.
It's the best
Close.
looking though. The red,
Just-
the anodized
no,
red is incredible.
It was just the one that I wanted. So that was, and now
Yeah.
I've got enough of them that I don't want them anymore. So I'm okay. But in terms of a dream, I tell you what though, sometimes I quite like, and this is a bit nerdy, but I quite like looking at the inside of amplifiers and just seeing the layout and the care and the precision and the engineering, So I would say a Brax Matrix amplifier. If you take the lid off one of those suckers and you have a look inside, that is just beautiful. Like workmanship, engineering, and of course it's German, so what do you expect? But yeah, that's a nice amplifier. But yeah, so the 2100 would be my favorite. Yeah.
No, so we're
Yeah.
not too far apart. The 225 is mine. I'm a well-known Orion fanboy, so
Yeah, I'm one of the fence dwellers, so I like the Orion 225 as well, but the Rockford Power 1000 with the LEDs, the original one, the Terminator, that's my favorite. But I've talked about that before, so everybody probably is like, "Shut up, we don't care what you want, D. Let's listen to Craig." So we're gonna move on to the next question. What's the story with that '63 Lincoln?
Right. There's always a story. Yeah. The story with the Lincoln. Well, I was in Singapore at the time doing a project, doing an FPSO conversion for a client. That was 2011. And one day I was just flicking through, was it eBay or, like car sales or something like that? And as you do, you just look at cars, it was just a moment in time. And I saw this Lincoln, and I realized it was in Australia. And the guy had brought it in, and the story was he brought it in for his wife, and he was the kind of guy that would buy a couple of cars in the US, get them roadworthy or do them up, and then sell them in Australia. And I think it was just a side business. Anyway, it turns out he didn't want it. And just randomly, I flicked it to a guy I'd used before plenty of times who restores cars and panel beater. And he just shot back an email saying, "Oh, I know the guy who owns that." And so I started this conversation. I said, "Yeah." And I said, "No." And he goes, "Oh, do you want to check it out?" And I went, I didn't really want to, but I said, yeah, go on. I feel a bit guilty for, sending him the email. So he went and checked it out, and he said, it was rust free. It was really good condition. It's straight body. And I know the guy, and it's, it's a good thing. It's all right. And then I couldn't help myself. I just love those cars. Like, if you've watched The Matrix and you see that scene in the black Lincoln, they're driving along. that's the car. So I ended up buying it. and then it sat for 6 months until I got back to Australia, and then I got it roadworthy. That's why it's got sort of full license plates on it, and just slowly started doing things to it, so the airbag suspension, and then, just started designing a sound system. So, as you do, you have something like that, you have the dream install in your head. So you start visualizing how you can do. And so I have a plan for that car, and it really hasn't changed much since the last sort of 3 years of thinking about how this sound system's going to go in it. But there's a few things I needed to get done for. So I've done the engine and the drive train, and so all engine transmissions all new. That's because the old engine was on its way out, and you had no power. The old 430 MEL motors were just a big heavy anchor. So now it's got a small LS2 with a Harrop supercharger on it. So, it moves the car along a bit. We just did the diff. So, and the brakes are all done. So it's a nice car to get in, turn the key, and it drives. It drives, it stops, and that's where it's at now. And then we did a bit of a quick drop-in box. We did the modern day box that rocks just for a car show, car event, I should say. We wanted to just have a bit of fun. Quite successfully, that box was just took the place of the back seat. So we put 3 RE15 subwoofers in it, the Triple X model, in a sealed box, and then we put some German Maestro mids and tweets in it, in a sealed chamber at the top. Dropped it in the back seat. So I tried to reminiscent of the old days with the old Rockford Fosgate box that rocks, and lots of batteries, lots of amps in the boot, and again, that's it. You see the picture there. Yeah. It was, again, a bit of fun we just wanted to do. It's not the system for the car at all, and it is coming out. And the system for the car is this big Godfather build. So, again, another story there of seeing items like M&M, the Godfather series, and just been slowly, when items came up for sale, which is pretty rare, been grabbing those. So the idea is to have a set of horns under the dash, horn loaded compression drivers. I've already bought the drivers. They're a JBL driver. I've already got a set of wave guides to go with them. Huge space in the tire wells, if you like. When you take the metal piece off the wheel arch, you can get there's probably 30 litres of space before you hit the kick panel. So we can build some great mid-bass kicks in there, and then basically fill the back with Godfather subs, and then do the boot out with amps. A typical big old school build, But, I heard a mate of mine in the US, and he's a great guy, and he keeps saying, when are you going to do that Lincoln? You keep busting my chops over it, And I said, time and money, you try and do so much, and we will get there. We will get there. But then, and that's, you want to keep the car on the road, you want to keep it driving, and you're trying to fix all the little things, and then bit by bit we'll get there. But so, that's the story with the Lincoln. It's just one of those, I don't know how many Lincolns in Australia. There's a small club of guys that, we're online with, but there's, it's just one of those cars. Again, loved it. Love the look of it. It's like driving a tank.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful car, and actually it's one of the ones that I'd considered, because I recently purchased a vintage classic car myself.
Yeah, I saw that. Beautiful.
Yeah, so I wanted one, and I don't know if this had anything to do with your decision, but I wanted one that had 4 doors, and I wanted it to be suicide. So there were only a certain number of vehicles over the years that A, had the look I liked, and B, had the suicide doors. So the Lincoln obviously was one, but if you haven't seen the Jay Leno's Garage, where he talked about the convertible Lincoln from those same years.
Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, but they talked about how complex the mechanism was for the convertible top. That's very interesting to watch, but I see yours is not convertible, so you don't have to worry about that. But I'm like you, the same way. Perfection, it takes time. It takes time to get things like you want them. I wouldn't be in any rush. It's a beautiful car. You've done a great job so far. We're looking forward to what turns out here and how it turns out. But I think you should show it more in your videos, just because it's just a gorgeous car. Just the exterior, man, it's just awesome.
I mean, I'm embarrassed for promising things and they're not delivering on that car because of just time and expense. So you want to start it, but there's how many projects you want to start. You got to finish a couple first. So we're really going to finish the Jeep that we're doing, and then I've got that little cube to get into as well. But
Oh yeah, I remember that. You done a intro video on the Cube, didn't you?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched the box that rocks that you done in there. That was really awesome. And I can't think of anything better to go in that Lincoln than Godfather subs. I mean, come on. You need some Tommy guns that just set in the back there.
Yeah, those Godfather subs that's going to be a lot of fun. I have a lot of them now. So now the challenge is how to squeeze them all in.
Yeah, that's the bad part about having a reason to buy some of this stuff, because my excuse is always, oh, I need to test it and make a video for YouTube. And then before I know it, I've got 30 amps stacked up, and there's no way I can get to 30 amps, within 2 years. So why do I keep doing it? I don't know. But that's always, I think, our excuse is we have a reason. But what we'll do, for those who are watching this on YouTube, we will link below to the box that rocks, because that's a really cool video. It's actually a two-part that Old School Car Audio did. We'll show those, and then the Cube and also the Jeep JK that they're working on. We'll link all those below. And if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you go to 12volttalk.com. We'll link them there so you guys can check them out. So Rob, you're next.
Okay. Old School Car Audio, the website.
Yep.
What's the plan with it? Like, what's your vision?
Yeah, good point. Great question. I, as I said, when I started exploring the curiosity of car audio. Again, it started with that collecting side of it, and that was probably 9-10 years ago. But in the last say 18 months, I've given it a lot of thought, to the point where I've actually spent probably the first part of 2017 really just working through a brand vision and a concept that I had about what I really wanted to do. And it's one of those things that we all have jobs, we all do what we need to do. Sometimes we don't necessarily completely enjoy what we do, but let's hope so. But what I find is that car audio for me was one of those hobbies, curiosities, passions, whatever you want to call it, that when you are doing it, when you are involved in the conversation of, or when you are involved in the actual physical building of something, time passes very quickly. So I'd call it a strength. It's something that strengthens you. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Well, for me, car audio is a strength because it's really where I want to be. It fulfills me, and you get a lot of self-satisfaction out of it. Does that mean I'm an expert? No. Does that mean I have significant talents in all aspects of fabrication and installation? Absolutely not, no. But that's why I've aligned myself with a couple of other people who are experts in car audio and who bring that side to the business. So it was always a business. It was always the idea to have a business like that. I had a similar concept a few years before, which I never got off the ground. But it was answering some fundamental questions that I think, just from being a participant in the industry, being someone who sits and observes and kind of trying to figure out why the industry is the way it is, what are the problems that people face, can I solve those problems for people? And having my background in the oil and gas sector and construction project management, do a lot of consulting work, I kind of have to solve clients' problems. And what I noticed that in the aftermarket car industry here in Australia, be it car audio or something else, there's I guess there's a level of professionalism that I'm used to that perhaps you don't see on a day-to-day basis here. And that creates a lot of problems. Communication's one of them, for example, that people don't feel that they go to a store or they go to, Joe Blogs XYZ car works, and they have their pride and joy. This car that they've got a Lincoln, say, for example, that they've spent years to, and they want some work done. And because it's their passion and their pride and joy, and it's their thing, that they have this. There's an element of trust, and you hand that object of yours, that car, over to this person, and you ask them, you're entrusting with them, and then there's this reoccurring story I hear all the time across the different parts of the market is, it's the letdown. It's the didn't get what they want, didn't get listened to, didn't feel that they got value for money, got charged more than perhaps what they were quoted. Then someone else looks at it and points out a whole bunch of issues. So I've experienced that. And over the years, I've built up a very small network of businesses that I use personally. And I think that's what the concept of what Old School Car Audio was about, the business model as well. It was starting to look at what are the problems people face. And it's that not being fully understood that you're getting what you're asked for, especially in car audio, unclear expectations, bad organisation, perhaps not getting enough professional and consistent feedback when the car's in a shop and you're getting work. You're worried, what's going on? Are they, who's working on my car? Oh, I hope they don't scratch the paint. I hope they use the right fixing methods for speakers, or not using tech screws and all this kind of thing. And will they earth my amplifiers? And you're worried about leaving your vehicle there, because a lot of places don't have storage, so they're pushing the cars in and out every day. There, you've got younger guys working on it, and as an older guy, you instinctively think that I wonder if he has the same care and attention that I give to my car. That will he give that to my car? I don't know. And so there's worry, and so you feel that. Again, the other thing I hear is that sometimes businesses that run, they do a lot, they have high turnover. Sometimes you can feel like you're just a job getting pushed out the door. And if you're enthusiastic about car audio, like I am, and in fact enthusiastic about audio, full stop, let's face it, you need that bit of care and attention, because it is a sensory thing. Music is, we listen to music. It's like wine tasting. You have a glass of wine, it's sensory. You smell the wine, you get the different flavors in your mouth, and audio is the same. You listen to it, it's very subjective. It's a real experience. So you don't just want to, wham, bam, thank you, man, here's your car, handball to you, and you don't really quite understand what's happened, and it sort of kind of sounds okay, but did I really get what I want? So these are all the problems, if you like, that I was identifying. And a lot of people, again, another classic one is perhaps getting sold on something that they don't know how that will acoustically sound in their car. So they get something they're told is good because someone else tells them it's good, and they didn't go through the process of actually listening to that in the right environment, or understanding how their hearing is at their age to know what frequencies they actually probably don't hear. And a good example of that was a guy we spoke to, who's a friend of mine, Damien Tennant, who's profoundly deaf. And his audio system's great to listen to. It actually sounds good, but there's some massive gaps because he can't hear that frequency, So his car is tuned specifically to him. So again, there's that time and care and attention in dealing with people. And I think that it's that little bit extra effort, a little bit extra human interaction. And so they're the problems that I could see. So why Old School Car Audio? Why the name? Well, it was always about old school values. It was about going back to values first. So the business is based on a set of core values. And every sort of month we revisit those and we look at what our core values are, and do we still aligned with those values, because values change over time. It was never about making money. It was never about opening up a shop, sticking the flag out the front and saying, hey, we're open for business, coming, let's, put in cameras in your car and all that kind of thing. It was about trying to find like-minded people who really appreciate audio, really understand that they like music, really want that level of attention, care and detail, who have those cars that are very special to them, and they want to have that level of trust that, when they have their car delivered, that there's a level of maturity and professionalism that's perhaps missing elsewhere. And when they come here, they have an experience. There's more time spent on a conversation than there is perhaps, picking bits of equipment. You really need to sit down and understand what people want. And I think there's so much of that's missing in our fast-paced, world that we live in. So yeah, combination of there's good core values that underpin the business, solving these questions, solving these problems that we think people face. And so that was where I spent a lot of the work, just trying to work out how this was going to be structured and modeled. In terms of the social media, we have an online shop. So I said, I've aligned myself with a few brands, but you'll only notice that they're the brands that we like. We're not linked to brands, because there's a lot of stuff I don't like. There's a lot of stuff that, as I said before, there's stuff that's well built and not well built. And these are things that I think sound really good. They're things that perform well. They're backed with traditional brands with good warranty, new school, and I've got the old school stuff. So there's that combination of both to meet everyone's needs. So Sam Marrett, who works with me, he's a young guy, so he brings all the technical expertise to the business. And Sam's excellent. We're very different people, very different guys, not just in age, but, we approach things from very different angles. If I say it's red, Sam will say it's blue. There's no question about it. Like, it is that different. But, and again, this goes back to part of the business model was to be finding, I say like-minded people that understand, appreciate all the values first of the business. That's the key, is to align yourself with people that have the same core values. And then the benefit, the actual plus that came out of that is that Sam has such different opinions to music that I do and to installs that I do, that he's at this end, I'm at this end, and we meet in the middle somewhere. Actually, that's not true. I typically meet over on Sam's side because I get convinced on a few things. But, again, the good thing, it's about finding the people who are just as curious and as passionate about audio as what you are, so you can add that level of service to the customer. And so that it's sort of evolved organically over the last 9 months. And I said, you keep revisiting the business plan, revisiting your values and seeing where the business is going and what you want it to do. But fundamentally, it was about solving those issues that I could see, getting back to what music is all about in cars. And part of that is, I won't say educating people, because I don't think people want to be educated. I think people want to be inspired. So doing videos, it's not just about social media, it's having a presence. It's about trying to do things that are inspirational, whether they're your own cars or other customers' cars, and showing what you can do, inspiring other people. Because the more people that participate, one of our core values, the more people get out there and do it. A lot of us older guys, we don't participate, and we need to. Get out and go to a car show. Even if you don't like the cars, go and participate, because there's nothing better than a young guy hearing from some old fart like us that comes up to him and say, hey, not a bad job, man. Well done. Like, good effort. Like, how hard is that? Right? Suck it up. You might not like it, but give some encouragement, participate. The more people we can get participating in the industry, that kickstarts the momentum. And their mates want something, and then they go and do something with their mate, and then people are learning. And so there's a real philosophy behind it. But of course, as well, we are really enjoying what we're doing and open for business and taking on orders. We've had some pretty phenomenal inquiries actually in the last 6 weeks, which is great. But in a nutshell, that's the business.
So it sounds like you've kind of got a bespoke type of setup there, where you can, or a concierge, something in that range where you can offer not only new stuff, but old stuff. And you can really find out what they want, what they need, so just taking that time and care, that's excellent.
Yeah, I really firmly believe in, niching down. So what are you passionate about? What is it that you love? what are the products that you like and why, the music, core values of the business, and really focusing down and then understanding who your audience is or your market, who you want to talk to. And that's not a big market, right? It's a very small market of people. It's, those guys are really, and girls that really appreciate audio and want to spend that care and attention, or have those, a guy with a hot rod who may not want to, lives in his garage and he dusts it every day and he wants to put some audio in it. Who's he going to go to? Like, he's going to be paranoid. So there's we do some things that are, again, talking about that concierge type of, bringing in my background of project management, construction management. We do scheduling. So if someone comes and talks to us, we'll do a proper Gantt chart, proper schedule. We'll itemize all the consumables and materials, the equipment. We'll break it down into a proper schedule showing this is the milestone dates. This is what we're going to achieve this week and why. We'll give them regular reports and updates. We do a cost time resource for every job. So people know what they're getting up front. They know why. But before you even get to that, it's the conversation you have with them about what it is they like. And a lot of people don't know. They think they know. So you need to then sit them down, and it's about putting them in an environment where they can listen to actual car audio speakers, run off car audio amplifiers, and give them the most realistic, experience they can. And then going across different speakers, spending that time. And that's not necessarily about trying to sell something. That's, for me and for Sam, that's about sharing our own love of audio. Because everyone's different. Everyone hears things differently. You don't hear the same full frequency range that I'll hear, because we all have dips and gaps in our hearing. So it's very subjective. So you really need to spend the care and the time, in my opinion, to find out what people want. If the car's here, we have a thing that we can, they can log in on a webcam and they can look at their car 24 hours a day. They can see what's being done on their car live, a simple app on their phone. We assign one of our cameras to their car. So, again, that's a value add for customers coming in. Again,
this picture, I'm sorry, Craig, to interject here, but I think this picture says it all. If you look at the look on your face and Sam's face, this shows that, what this means to you guys. I mean, there's no doubt that this wasn't a pose. This is true happiness.
Yeah, there's a bit of that going on. There's a little bit too much happiness goes on out the back at times, because sometimes we don't get a lot done. But no, that's it's good. We have some great conversations. There's so much to learn, and I think that, and it's, again, a bit philosophical, but going back to talking about Sam having a younger guy here who has a whole different opinion on things. And it's good to get mentored from younger people. We always talk about being mentored from older people, but it's good to hear from younger people. We shouldn't be dismissive. We tend to be dismissive as you get older with what younger people have to say. And if you just give it the time, there's, I find I learn a lot. So I'm actually enjoying it. It's a great experience to work with him. I'm going to rustle him out of his office, actually, so he can come and say hi in a minute.
Please do. While you're doing that, I'm gonna show everybody a picture of your shop, just so they can drool over it like we do.
Yeah.
I'll turn you on.
Pops are showing me how to use it.
Yeah, we definitely need something like this, Derek.
No doubt.
I mean, I drove over your shop, so this is next level.
Look at that, matching T-shirts.
Branding.
Yeah.
Hey, Sam, how's it going?
Yeah, good yourself.
Good. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being here as well.
Yeah.
Can you hear him okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So we were just talking about the synergies about, I was gas bagging about the business and about, our values and the value that I see you bring to the business versus what I bring. But Sam's he's not only a great fabricator and technician, but also the Australian distributor for a couple of these high-end brands that we carry. Helix, Brax, German Maestro. It's actually a picture you see there, that's our bookshelf speakers we're making for the office to demo our car audio range. Actually, you designed those, Sam. Why don't you tell us a bit about those?
Yeah, so we wanted to have a demo set up that really sort of showed off our high-end products. So a few of those products are some products that I distribute, so Brax and German Maestro. And then we also have Dyne Audio Esatara as well, and the Morel. So we really wanted to set up a demo center where people can sit down, have a coffee and relax and really go through all of it and really get a good feel for it. So again, it sort of comes back to our approach where we're more quality focused than quantity. So we want to take the time with the clients that we have, whether that's half an hour, just sitting down and auditioning to really see what works for them. And everybody's different. There's not really a case of one's better than the other. It's just what suits that particular person. So we really want to set up a demo center that could truly achieve that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. This is obviously best case scenario where you have it in the room and people can really hear the difference between the drivers or the amplifiers or whatever you're demoing. But I think it's really cool that you're doing that, and the speakers look great too. You guys going to sell those, make those to sell, or are you just doing them for your demo room?
No, they're going here in the demo room, and but
Everything's for sale.
Everything's for sale
for the right price. There's a lot of work that goes into those cabinets. They look quite simple, but by the time they're designed and built, we're also doing them properly. We've got a spray booth set up here as well, so they're all going to be piano finish in a two-pack, two-pack paint. So there's a lot of work that actually goes into that. It's probably at a rough estimate, maybe 20 to 30 hours just per set, and we're building 4 sets. So there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Mm.
So I have 2 questions. The first one's for Sam. How often does Craig try to get you to put old school instead of something new in a car? Is it every install, or is it?
That's pretty much every install, and it starts that way. And I got to try and start coercing it in a different direction. And I do it subtly. I can't do it as a dominant takeover because it never works. I have to slide in little comments and, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Sort of this. I've worked out how to deal with it. It's a slow approach.
Your cheap manipulative techniques are no longer working, though.
He's got a problem. I'm a salesman and I'm a technician and a fabricator. So I can sell it to him. And that's the problem. I do a little before you know it, it's all in there.
He wears me down. I actually just say yes eventually to get him to shut up.
Yeah, I know. So he's like a work wife then.
Sorry?
I said, so he's kind of like a work wife.
Yeah.
All right. My second question. And Sarah's, what is it, a Starlet?
Yeah.
I seen the pained look in your face putting all that MTX equipment in. Well, what was that about?
Which one of us is this for?
This is for both of you.
Yeah. Actually, well, the wonderful thing about that job was the fact that Sarah brought all her own equipment. So I think it was John's equipment that he had left over. So they didn't have an equipment outlay, and because it was, I guess we'll call it a community build, something for free that we did. It was nice that they brought their own gear. Having said that, you are going back to that point about music being subjective, and people listen and hear things differently. And a lot of hearing. It actually, if you're really good at it, it takes a lot of training to train your ears to hear things, so you can improve your hearing when you listen to music. So maybe what we hear and like is very different from what other people like. So in the case of that, they brought all the equipment. The point we wanted to make was it doesn't matter what the equipment is, the installation is still the same techniques, the same level of care and equipment that go into it, and attention with the cabling and finish of the different surfaces. And they wanted a fairly stock finish so it was, one of the points I think we had was about the mid bass drivers.
Yeah,
which we were trying to, that particular MTX speaker was more of a PA speaker and didn't play low.
Mid range than anything else.
Yeah.
I guess it's a bit of an adjustment for me personally. So I'm, as Craig will attest, extremely critical on the engineering side of it, making sure that it's going to check out acoustically, electronically, and all those other things as well. So I did have a few concerns about it, especially regarding that mid-range. So I guess I was a little bit reserved from that, but Craig sort of shown me the way with more so being interested that it's what the person wants. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And it was a really good end result. Sarah was really happy.
Yeah, 100%.
And that makes it all worthwhile. So sometimes I need to learn to be a little less critical and just
Yeah.
passion of it.
I think it definitely paid off. If you watch that video, just the look on her face, you can tell it paid off.
Yeah, no, that's the look. That level of happiness is just, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So we'll have people go to your website, oldschoolcaraudio.com.au, check out everything you guys have going on. We also want to kick you guys over 1,000 subscribers if we can, so make sure you check out the YouTube channel, and it's Old School Car Audio, and I'll let Craig talk a little bit about that. First thing that I'll say is the quality of the content that you guys put out is truly, it looks like it's TV. I mean, it looks like it's Discovery Channel, Velocity, whatever you want to call it. Extremely good quality. I know how much time stuff like that takes. I also know you're trying to run a business, and it's extra work to do that. I do think it's important. We kind of talked about it before about getting people more interested in car audio, having more people watching content like this get some more excited about needing a system. So it's hard to do, but I encourage you guys to keep it up because your videos are super top notch, and we'll make sure that there's a link in the video description so everybody can check out their videos and just go back and watch them all. Seriously, just go and watch the playlist because every one is an excellent video. Some better than others because some have the drama and everything like that, and just and not intentionally, I'm sure, but I mean they're just really, really good content. So, Craig, I don't know if you you obviously have a vision with what you're trying to do with your YouTube channel. So, do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, look, it's a lot of is a learning curve for anyone, I guess. Okay, here's the first time I got in front of a camera, 37 takes, right, to say hi, right, and none of it ever saw the light of day. And I think being an ex-seafarer, I think I went through every expletive in the dictionary, plus ones I've invented myself, in those 37 takes. So it's really hard to do that. It's not something that comes easily. But again, it goes back to values, back to trust, and being able to stick a camera on what you do and share what you do. And the format is not it's not to be educational. The format is not to deliberately be educational and stand there and say, okay, this is an amplifier that we're installing in a car, and here are the speakers. And I'm starting to nod off already, just talking about it. And there's plenty of people doing that, and that's their bag. But it was more about sharing our enthusiasm for audio. That's because that's what we're curious about. That's what we're passionate about. That's what we love. It gets you out of bed every morning. It's the job that you can do every day. And before you know it, you look at your watch and go, "Oh, it's 6 o'clock. I better get home." Like, when you find that's your thing. So it's trying to capture that and share it, and it's just that simple. And that is different formats. In the YouTube stuff, so we're trying to break it up into doing some project cars that are sort of ongoing. The interviews with people, it's about finding people who are who have stories to tell. Sometimes it's always about car audio, but there's always a story behind it, and I like to share the story because if there's always something there that will resonate and connect people about it. And that I remember that when I've met people as I've gotten older, I've forgotten about one of the magazines apparently my car was in. People say, "Oh yeah, that's why I got into car audio. I read your magazine in whatever, the magazine that published that, back in 1998, and that inspired me." And I just went, "Wow, that's awesome. Imagine if I could inspire people to go out into their garage and put car audio into their car and have some fun." Like, yeah, okay, that sounds cool. So it's all about, inspiring others, but also about being completely transparent on everything we do in the workshop. So again, if we have a customer that's here, you get full transparency, not just looking through a camera to see what we do, but we can film exactly what we do. So there's no wire that goes, it's those rogue wires that, maybe someone bundles up with a bit of tape and shoves them under the carpet or something silly like that. But everything's on camera. So that was, there's a dual sort of thing going on there. In terms of the YouTube channel, I don't know. It was, again, it's a way to share our inspiration and passion. We kind of like the idea of doing it a bit like a TV show rather than, like I used to love watching shows like Overhauling and American Hot Rod and all that. And, I know all that was contrived, all the drama was contrived, but there was this little sense of realism in it. So I do like that. I like the idea of that sort of TV show format. And maybe the Discovery Channel will come along and decide that, hey, I really like what you guys are doing. I doubt it. Anyway,
It'd be nice, though.
It'd be nice, yeah.
Well, you have the content ready if they do ask. So it's very, very good content. And I'll leave the link below so that people can go check out your YouTube channel. Let's get you over 1,000. You got 929 according to what my screen shows here. So make sure we get you over 1,000.
That'd be awesome.
And I did, Rob, I'm going to step on your toes real quick because I had a question for both of them that it's not going to shock you or not going to be something that you're not going to feel comfortable in answering, but I want to know. Android or iPhone? Craig, you first. Sam, you second.
Android all the way, buddy.
I have both. I don't lean either way. I use the Android daily, and the Apple's my secondary phone. But I hate to admit it, the Apple actually works.
But that's because you drop your Android regularly.
I drop the Apple too. I drop them equally. I make them share the love.
Yeah.
I love this question because it makes people's blood boil, and it's just funny to me to hear all the reasons. Hey, Rob and I are both iOS, but whatever makes you happy, I'm cool with. I just enjoy the question because I like to see, especially the comments below. I'm sure right now people are just bam, 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 boxing match.
What we do know is you're certainly not editing any video on that Android.
No.
Yeah.
No. I could never go fully Apple because audio quality.
So Craig, I don't know if you know this or not, but Rob and I do all of our video editing on either an iPhone or an iPad. I stopped using a professional editor about 2 years ago, and there's an app called LumaFusion that's $20. You get it from the iOS store. If you have an iPad Pro, it is simply unbelievable the stuff you can do on a tablet.
Yeah, look, it's the whole Apple. I remember when Macs first came out, right? Do you remember the resurgence? It was you had the Mac LC, LC2, LC3, then the Mac PowerBook came out, and I had the first. I think I was at uni when the PowerBook came out. I think you needed just own like suitcase to move it around in, but they were great because they were a graphics computer and they're really good at doing those sorts of creative things. And I think that's always been their target market. Is you can do a lot of the creative work on them versus a PC based system. So yeah, I'll give you that one.
Yeah, no, it's whatever you like. We don't make opinions based on what type of phones people use. We're just curious because we have certain reasons why we use what we use, but it's always interesting to hear what everybody else hears. So I think as far as our time, we're getting pretty close to running out of time here for the podcast. So what I'll ask you, Craig, is if you can just give. We've already given them, and people can see it in the video, but some people may be listening to this and may not see your link up there at the top. So if you don't mind giving them your details about your website and your YouTube channel, Instagram, anything like that, we'll let you go first.
Okay, so everything, if you just head over to oldschoolcaraudio.com.au, you can find the links there to get to our YouTube. So we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we have a Facebook group, and we're on Instagram at oldschoolcaraudio.com.au.
Okay, great. And if you guys can stick around for a few minutes, we'll answer some questions out after we end this. And those who are listening on the audio version of the podcast, if you can catch us live on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, then you can interact with us before and after. So make sure you join us when you can. Understand everybody can't watch live content, and people have things to do. So we appreciate you listening. But you can find us. Rob is at Hi-Fi Vega, and he is on all the social medias. Just search for Hi-Fi Vega, and you'll find him on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. Find me under Big D Wiz on YouTube, and also oldschoolstereo.com. I didn't put the car in there because I planned maybe one day I'd do home stuff too. Like I'm ever going to have time to do that. But anyway, that's all. Make sure you check us out. 12 Volt Talk, 12V Talk on youtube.com/12V Talk. And make sure you go and leave us a comment on any of the podcast applications, iTunes especially. We're looking for 100. When we get to 100, we're going to give away some goodies. So thanks everybody for listening. Till next time.
We're out of here.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us. All right, cool. So we'll usually end the podcast right there. And I didn't mean to cut you guys off so quickly because that was going really well. But I just felt like our time was, it was a little bit long, and I didn't want to go too far beyond that. But this was great, you guys. This was fantastic, awesome discussion.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm really, really grateful for having it. It's a good thing to do. We should do more of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. I'm glad we had you.
Yeah, there's a ton of comments here. I'm gonna scroll through real quick and see if there's any questions. You guys, if you're still in the chat room, looks like we have about 43 people. If you have anything you want us to ask Craig here or Sam, then just let us know. It looks like Jay Standerwick says, I'm from Austin. So you know him?
Yeah, well, what's his question?
He didn't. He just said, Craig knows this guy, ha ha ha. So that's all he said.
Yeah, great guy.
Let's see. Can I ask Craig's opinion of response precision amps from J-Car here in Australia?
Yeah, I had very little to do with them and even use them. I know the ones they're talking about. I honestly haven't used them ever. Have you ever used one or tested one?
I've worked on a few cars that have them. And surprisingly, they actually weren't terrible. For a cheap amp, they were actually okay. Nothing crazy, but solid, cheap gear. So, yeah.
Cool. Audrey Mitchell says, love all your channels. Sarah's build. Craig, thumbs up.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hi-Fi Vega with a shirt and tie looking sharp as a razor.
I know, right? He is sharp, man.
We're getting into after hours now. I got to loosen it up a little bit.
There you go. Comfort over looks. Let's see. Does high power give you an advantage in SQ? Can low power, say 800 watts, that's low power, total power system truly, I think we missed the end of that. So how do you, and I didn't ask that question in here. That's probably a good one. So what do you guys feel like, what is your optimal power for subs and front end and stuff like that? What do you kind of recommend for, say, the average person that comes in, not the super bass head or anything like that? What do you guys recommend?
Me personally, it's just every person's idea of SPL is different. So I'll generally try and gauge where that is and then engineer in a little bit of extra power for dynamics and headroom as well. Generally don't want to be running an amp, flat chat the entire time. So generally speaking, for a front stage, if we're running active, anywhere from 70 to 100 RMS a channel, and in a sub, probably 600 to 800 RMS usually. So if they want to turn it up, they can. For me personally, or if I'm sort of approaching a build with I guess no restrictions, I'll just aim for as much as possible. So a few hundred RMS a channel, even in an active configuration, and up to a couple of kilowatt for a sub stage. And that can still be for a hardcore SQ setup. The Brax Matrix amps, for example, I love using them, and they're about 280 RMS a channel, and we use them running active front stages. And they do a kilowatt as well, Class A, B for the sub. So just depends on the system and the client individually.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. It's funny because we're doing the Jeep, and I'm insisting we use my older equipment in it, and so there's limitations on the power, So, maybe getting 100 watts a channel, but it's an active system as well. And the subs, because it's a 2250, I'm only going to have 1,000 watts at the most at 4 ohms with that 2250. So it's, but I think, I tend to agree with Sam. If you can get a lot of clean power and you can get a lot of headroom up front, that's fantastic,
As long as it's not at the cost of being a quality amplifier. You don't, personally, I'd prefer less power and higher quality than more power and less quality. But it also depends on the efficiency. Like your Jeep's going to be running 3 subs in the back. So whilst it's only 1,000 RMS, you have a lot of cone area and a lot of efficiency.
Yeah.
Some cars, like my previous car, had a single 10, but it was in a transmission line enclosure, which was extremely sensitive. And on 400 RMS, it was louder than what most people could want. So it's a pretty open-ended sort of question.
Yeah, it's funny. I test a lot of amps on my channel, and I find that the sensationalism of the numbers being high seems to be, what a lot of people are looking for. And I probably don't do a good enough job explaining, do you really need 8,000 watts? And these people buy these amps and they don't even have upgraded electrical systems, and they're wondering why, they don't sound good. I'm like, why do you have an 8,000 watt amp with a 120 amp alternator and a single battery?
Yeah.
But
that temporary system we put in the Lincoln,
I was just going to
that is a classic example of, we used a sound digital amp. Okay, right now, I might cause a bit of controversy, but let's face it, they're not a sound quality amp. That is just raw electrical power. It is like a big dirty transformer that sits there and hums. It just, and you kind of approach it with that caution of, as you're connecting, you almost like you want those old sort of, switches that used to clack it down like that. But we put that in. That's a 12 kilowatt amp on 3 RE15s. And it's a genuine 12 kilowatts, but it's not 12 kilowatts of clean power. It's just raw brute force, and all you want is that's just purely for SPL. But there's 5 lithium batteries that sit behind that, So there's probably $8,000 worth of batteries in that car that can support that amplifier. And when we went to that car show, I think I had it playing for about half an hour, flat chat. And we still had 13.27 volts.
With the car turned off.
With the car off, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because lithium sort of hold their charge for a long time, and then when they do drop off, they sort of off they go,
They hold their bulk charge up top.
So, as an example of just raw power, but you need to think about the capacity that sits behind that to support the amplifier. Otherwise, you'll have a cooked amplifier in no time.
Cooked speakers.
You might have a cooked car using lithium and that amp.
It's
a very, very
in the rear end. It's like you don't want anyone to hit you.
Yeah, that's crazy. A 12K amp on those speakers, huh? That was that amp didn't survive, did it? I heard.
There was the first amplifier we had was a second-hand amp that I purchased, which was an SD8K, was it?
SD8K.
And it survived that night. And then on the way home, it died on me. And it was, I think there was a couple of circuits in it gone and the fan had gone. And anyway, we could have spent money on fixing it. But at the end of the day, we went, you know what, let's go and get a 12K just to...
Get it brand new. It's a new series. They've been refined.
Yeah, I think they fixed a few of the issues with the Series 1. So.
I think they have their place, really. Like, at the end of the day, something like the Lincoln will, quick system, lots of cone area, bulk power, not the right way to engineer it long term. If it was a long term thing, we would have engineered it so it was efficient, maybe a horn design, run probably a tenth of the power and tried to do similar numbers. But, when you just want a mang, for a better of a term.
Yeah, but it looked really cool, though.
Yeah, they do look
the box
super
actually
cool
came out.
box.
There was a lot of work in the box. It came out really nice,
We got some great comments here. Thanks everybody for leaving those. The third ERA or third era says, much love, guys. Subscribe and enjoy all your videos. We have a question about, did Australia have any car audio companies that maybe we didn't hear about in the USA? I don't know if you guys know. Maybe some of your less known brands that we don't know about here?
No,
No?
it really starts from the US and trickles down. Home audio is different. Home audio is different.
There's a lot of home audio here.
Somebody asked, why does Craig love German products so much? I think
'Cause
you
they're
kind of
just-
described it already, but
Just nice, man. Like, go and compare. It's like driving a Porsche to driving a Kia. But yeah, you just get used to being in the engineering field. You get across multiple sectors, especially in the oil and gas sector. Trip over something German versus tripping over something that's made in China, and it's chalk and cheese. And it, you open up the lid, as I said, of a nice handmade bespoke German amplifier. It's eye candy. It's beautifully made.
They have a very different approach to things as well, which I'm a big fan of. They try and, generally speaking, a lot of the German manufacturers try and do as much as they can under their own roof. German Maestro is a great example of that. Like, they literally cast their own baskets, make the cones, and they're fully assembled on site. So it goes from being, raw materials through to a full finished product, all in that one department, including engineering. They have their acoustic chambers and everything like that as well. I think that approach is really cool. And it adds to that sort of bespoke approach as well.
Yeah, because you definitely don't see a lot of cookie cutter coming from there, like we do from Korea. I know you guys probably know a little bit about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. In fact, that's the dirty secret in car audio, that the people who know. The people who don't know, some of them do know still, but a lot of the equipment, the companies here in the U.S. that slap their name on amplifiers and speakers, they're all the same. And I've shown that before in a lot of my videos where we've talked about, two 3K amplifiers, exactly the same, DC Audio and Crescendo, those two that I tested. Only thing different was the color of the circuit board. And I don't want to go too far in the depths of discussion about this, but my feeling is if you're going to do it, you got to be different, and I can't see the passion in myself. Even if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, Big D, we want to do a line of amplifiers, and we'll put your name on it and everything," and I just couldn't do that, knowing that it's something that everybody else makes, or it's just a cookie cutter. And I know it's a money-making thing because some of these companies are doing extremely well. And there's something to be said about that too, but it's just not my gig, and it sounds like you guys are kind of the same way with the way you talked about how you were doing your systems and you were customizing it. You're taking the time, you're helping the customer make the decision, you're showing them through video. So, that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, we have a pretty different approach to that sort of thing, and especially towards products. Like, the products that we sell are really only products that we'd run ourselves. It's quite different from a lot of stores. We don't have piles of stock laying around where we've got to reach a KPI and a target to move it. We're very different in that regard. So from old school gear to image dynamics to Dyna, Satara, everything in between, they're all products that we've either used ourselves or we want to use.
So how much sound dampening did you use in that Starlet? Because you used a lot.
Yeah. All right. Man, the doors closed like a Merc.
I bet.
A little car like that, you got to look. The example was to show there are some things that you don't compromise on, and if you can, that car had no sound ending in. So imagine it's the laws of diminishing return. Again, you put a little bit more effort into that, the audio is going to sound a whole lot better at the back end. You want to talk about overkill, the amount of sound deadening that's in the Jeep.
We go a little bit.
That's nuts.
On that.
Yeah. So I can't hear the tires now when I'm driving down a gravel road. There's that much.
Man.
I can just hear the crunch occasionally, but it is a tractor, as Sam has said. But so every little bit of sound deadening helps.
Yeah, you have to probably put a supercharger on it to make up for the difference in the weight, right?
You may have already done that.
Yeah,
Oh,
John.
we might have already done it. I hear that. So yeah, that's a good one. Um, let's see. Somebody had a good question here, and I just missed. Oh, your dailies. So Craig and Sam, both of you, what do you guys have in your daily driver vehicles, system-wise?
Oh,
This is a great question. You know how
It's a good question.
you know how you get builders and like a home builder, and they go around, they build other people's houses, they renovate, and yet I don't know if you have the expression over there that it's like a builder's house. That their own home is sort of always half renovated. It's a bit like us. You're always busy doing that much else for other people that your own system is never quite ready. So our focus, and this is our commitment to the end of the year, is just to focus on finishing our cars so that they are out of the way and done. So that would be the Jeep and the Mustang.
Mustang, yeah.
So again, that Jeep has a set of Canton two ways up front. And there's something radical we're about to show you in the next couple of weeks. We're actually doing a glove box delete and fitting an 8-inch IDQ Max image dynamic sub in the glove box in its own ported enclosure. There's enough room. And that thing is going to hammer for front stage. Rear fills Canton, and it'll be 3 JLW610 subs on all old school Orion amplifiers. So that's what I'm running in my that is effectively my daily, and Sam's Mustang's got the plan. Tell them about
Yeah,
that.
so I sort of have two cars that I've moved between. Not one of them is technically the daily, but the more daily vehicle is just a Ford Falcon Ute, which over here is like, I guess, a small pickup. And that's just got a set of German Maestro splits in the front of it for now, just some music. I have a problem. I either do something really simple or I go way crazy. So in this regard, due to time restraints, I went simple. And to be honest, it's a big upgrade over factory, and that's all right. The Mustang is a bit more of a mental system. So that's running all, for the most part, Audio Tech Fisher products. So that's running the Brax Matrix front stage. I wanted to do something a little bit different and experiment. So it's a 4-way active front stage using the ML1, 2, 3, and 6, all active. And then 4 of the new Helix C4 amplifiers that are just about to get released, which are properly cool. So they'll be powering the sub stage as well. And the subs are looking at this stage like Dyne Audio Essitar E1200s IB. So I'll have 2 of them in the rear, deleting the whole rear seat, pulling them out, and they'll be front firing from there. So it should be pretty cool, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, we both understand about the builder's house and
I see that. Look,
the car audio aficionado's car, because I get asked the same thing, and I have very little of a system myself. Rob's done much better than me.
I've got a raw MDF panel holding my amp, so around the edges.
But your sub box is dope.
Yeah, it's still unfinished a little bit too, but
It's nice. If you guys haven't seen his isobaric sub build with the Savard speakers, those are pretty cool.
Savard, that's so good just to say that. Like, talk about iconic brands that have thrown out a few, high Qs in the rap series. I love that. And even having the cone, the corrugated cone still on was it the high Q series, I think?
The Pro series.
Yeah.
And they have the accordion surrounds. That's what I really like about it. I think it's only like a 7mm X Max, but I really don't care.
Yeah, they sound good in Rob's truck.
Yeah.
Cool.
And we're going to get to talk to them this weekend. They'll be at the meet. So Will, the son of Bill.
Yeah. Right.
So.
Well, good deal, guys. I didn't see any other questions come up, and we've gone kind of beyond the time that I told you we would go. So I'll think we'll go ahead and let you guys go for the evening, or for the day for you, living in the future there, being Thursday, almost lunchtime.
We need to tell you the lottery numbers.
Yeah, you do. You do. Tell us who won that game so we can bet on it. But no, seriously, thanks both of you for taking time out to join us. And we've already given you information. We'll put it in the video description to the video. Hopefully, get you guys some traffic and get you over 1,000 subscribers on your YouTube, and get you some more visitors and all that good stuff. And again, it was great talking with you, and thanks for sharing the
man.
time with us. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks
Same.
for being on, guys.
Thank you.
All
All
right.
right, y'all have a good evening.
Thanks, man.
All right,
Bye.
bye.